Hello ladies and mental giant, and welcome to another Is It Worth the Grind video. Today we're looking at the Pz.Kpfw VII, aka the Panzer 7, aka the giant piece of shit. So is it worth the grind, you might ask? I don't know. If by the intro it wasn't quite obvious, then fuck no, it's not. Let's find out why by starting to look at the grind first. So we start off, it's a pretty straightforward grind now once things have been moved. We're not going to talk about the tier 5. Let's jump into the tier 6 and we get a pretty decent tier 6 medium. The VK3001P gets a nice 8.8 centimeter gun for tier 6 medium. This is a pretty powerful gun. It is a bit derpy, but the tank itself is pretty damn good. Equipment wise, it's tier 6, you usually don't skip on anything, and you can't really skip on much apart from this tier 5 derp that you don't really want to ever use anyways. And like, if you ever played any of the German tanks, you probably have all of these anyways. So yeah, on this tank you generally don't skip anything. It's not that much more expensive, and the Germans have the thing where they share all their things with all their tanks. So like, if you skip this engine here, you're gonna have a terribly slow Tiger P, so you don't want that, so you don't skip anything. Radios is up to you. Like, again, they're shared with every fucking German tank ever, so it's not a big grind. It's a tier 6, but you definitely want to use this 8.8 gun, as it makes the tank quite punchy for a tier 6 especially, and the pain at tier 6 at 145 isn't too bad anyways. But that is the last medium tank in the line, so let's move up to the Tiger P. So Tiger P is an interesting one. In general, well, it's interesting only because of this. It's not interesting because of the Tiger P itself. Tiger P itself is quite a mediocre tier 7 heavy tank. It does have pretty nice frontal plate, but you do have pretty shitty speed for it, and obviously you have that gigantic cupola on the top, as well as the famous shoulder plates that can be penned by pretty much any gun in the game. So it is very hard to hide all your weak spots. It's hard, like really hard to peek when none of your weaknesses are poking out. So Tiger P is really bad against people who know how to deal with one, and can be pretty good against people who have no clue. But in general, this is pretty bad as a tier 7 heavy. Again, for the grind, get everything. Just seriously, get everything. On these German tanks, everything is shared. You don't want to skip on anything. Obviously, you want to get this gun as well, but you probably already have it, as you probably have most of these guns and most of the things. The stock grind is pretty fucking bad though, as you don't really want to play with this gun for too long on a tier 7 heavy, and you definitely don't want this gun. So yeah, this is definitely a must-have for this tank. And then we move up to tier 8 with the new VK4502A. Well, new, not really new, but it has been reworked in HD and is much better than it used to be, because it just received the flat out frontal armor buff. This tank is actually pretty cool now. It's like a big medium with a pretty good gun, but a bit lackluster mobility for a medium. At the same time, the armor on this is so good now that tier 8s actually quite struggle to pen you, because everybody's always used to just shooting this in the hull, which doesn't really work that well anymore. The VK45 can definitely stand up to its opponents at tier 8 when it comes to the armor, until you meet somebody who's good at the game and is just gonna overmatch your turret with the Russian tier 7 122 mil. But in general, the armor on this actually works reasonably well. I'll definitely do some more videos on that in the future as well. The research order here is pretty straightforward again. This is a pretty shitty 105 gun for the Germans with the 200 pen, but this is like, if you haven't played the other German heavy line, this is gonna be what you're gonna have to be working with, and that's pretty, like, the gun itself on this tank isn't too bad. As I said, if you play it like a medium tank, it's pretty damn powerful actually, but later on this is gonna give you some troubles. You probably need to you definitely need to research the tracks, and again, all of these engines are shared, and you want this for tier 9 as well. So again, get everything. Generally get everything. You definitely want to get this gun, but probably you actually want to get the engine first on this tank and use the 88 until you get the tracks, the engine, and then get the gun, and probably then only get the turret. I mean, the stock turret on these is absolutely dreadful. The armor is just horrible, but at the same time, the top turret isn't much better. So, you know, you probably, like, it doesn't really matter the research order here. You just want, you know, you want to get all of the top things. You don't want to skip any of these because you're going to regret it later. And, yeah, well, later you get the VK4502B, the tank to play if you need to do the heavy tank mission where you need to get the damage bounced. The good news here is that you don't have to go through the second 105mm to get the 12.8. The bad news is you do need to get the best turret here. The stock turret luckily isn't too terrible. You still have 220 frontal, which is okay, but you definitely want to get the top turret. The 12.8, while is a bit of a potato gun on the VKB, is still much better than this, even though the Tiger 2's gun on this tank has pretty nice DPM and stuff like that as well. So while, you know, I'd never recommend you to use this, it's still, you know, a viable choice if you are grinding, and for a stock grind it's not too bad. And again, this gets shared everywhere, so you probably already have this, so only the tracks and then the turret, the gun, and you're done with this grind. And then we end up with the fat ass tier 10 miserable tank. So let's talk about that one now. Alright, so let's start with the armor. When it comes to the hull, the front of the hull is pretty impressive. I mean, 240 upper, 230 lower with some angle on it as well. And then you have this 300 plate, and then the lower plate is actually very well angled, 160. So none of that is too weak. The lower plate can get penned if you're slightly below your enemies. The tier 10s can definitely pen this, so it's not that uncommon. The problems start when you talk about the rest of the tank. So the side armor profile means, like, frontally, if you're close to your enemies, they're gonna struggle to find places to pen your hull. But once you're a bit more at range, anytime you turn your hull a bit, I mean, even if you don't turn your hull, a well-aimed shot in this area will always pen this frontally. There's no real way, I mean, unless you're fighting against like a Comet at tier 10. But anyways, generally, this will always pen. And whenever you're actually trying to side scrape, which, you know, most people do when they have a back-mounted turret, and that's kind of what you expect it to be doing anyways. But once you start side scraping with this, in any sort of angle, your side was going to be even more exposed, and it's going to be a pretty big zone here that always can get penetrated. And that's not all the bad things about this tank. The most hilarious part about this is the gun mantlet. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? Why does it have 200mm armor around the gun? That is so fucking stupid. And there's the zone where there's a lot of shit armor is really huge, actually. Sure, there is some RNG to it, which is, again, terrible. But 200 turret armor on a tier 10 super heavy. Are you fucking shitting me? And this is definitely one of the main reasons this tank is just junk. I mean, heat obviously just slashes through this as well most of the time, especially the lower plate. But the turret is like, why, man? Why would you do that to this tank? Especially with the mouse buffs. It's like typical wargaming when one hand doesn't know what the other one is doing, and one hand overbuffed the mouse to oblivion, and the other hand decided the 200 is plenty of armor for the tier 10 other super heavy. So that's just mind-boggling. So this tank cannot side scrape, it cannot really face sag either, it can't really do any of the super armor, the heavy things, and you also have a cupola, which isn't too weak. It, well, you know, it depends on the angle. Generally, people can't really see it that well, so there's not that much you can do about it. But if you can actually see it, it's definitely a weak spot as well. And other than that, I mean, there's a huge landing strip for RD shells here, but that's pretty much me done rambling about the armor, so let's get into the game. Alright, so let's talk through the stats real quick. So we start off with 2500 hit points, 400 meter view range, top speed forwards 33 kilometers an hour, and this is really disappointing. The VK in 9.17 used to do 43 kilometers an hour, and that has been nerfed to 33 for fuck knows what reasons as well. But the 43 kilometer an hour top speed could make this, like, you know, actually somewhat enjoyable, but you know, kind of have fun in German tanks. 15 kilometers an hour backwards, power to weight 10, You can see the traverses here. The general is 25, but the effective is slightly worse, obviously. And the terrain resistance is similar to the mouse. And then we come to the gun. And this number, again, completely deal breaker. 2190 DPM on a tier 10 heavy. Like, are you fucking serious? I'm pretty sure even an IS-7 gets a better DPM number. And that tank does not go 33 kilometers in forwards and has ridiculously good armor frontally, unlike this tank, which is riddled with weak spots and has a back-mounted turret. But anyways, you get a 560 damage per shot, which is pretty good, 258 penetration, which is also pretty good, and then you get 2.40 or 2.5 second aiming time and 0.35 accuracy with worse stats than on the mouse on the turret traverse as well. Pretty good shell velocity, so you have that going for you. Also, the gun elevation 17, not very good for a German super heavy, and depression is 5 to the front and 7 to the sides, but since you can't actually like show your side even remotely to anybody, so you have 5 degrees of gun depression, so you can go fuck yourself. Alright, so with stats out of the way, obviously my biggest complaints with this tank is that they nerfed the top speed. No idea why would they do that. Absolutely no clue. And the second thing is, as I mentioned, the pathetic DPM. It's truly, truly pathetic. It's so fucking bad that generally in order to have a good game in this tank, that game either needs to be 10 minutes long or you need to do something similar to this. Well, yeah. This makes the game okay for a Panzer 7. If you randomly ammo rack an E100 every game, then it is pretty good DPM, pretty good tank overall, but in general that doesn't happen too often. Our game so far has been pretty good. We took a really aggressive line of play because we kind of knew that nobody's going to really be crossing the bridge on their side, and it paid off reasonably well as we bounced a lot of shots. Didn't get any fucking spotting though, even though we did a lot of that. We didn't get any spotting damage, I guess, but yeah, so far the game, I mean, I can't complain at 4k damage, and that E100 ammo rack really made it all so much better, but generally we are still fighting for the victory here, and nothing has been settled just yet. Alright, so it is very possible that I'm giving this tank a bit too much crap, as, you know, you kind of do have to compare it with the new mouse, with the new slash broken mouse that some idiot in Wargaming thought would be a good idea to make that way. And then when you compare that, you think like, what? Why? What were they thinking? Are they thinking? What's happening? Where are my pants? You had to ask all these questions to yourself when you compare this to a mouse, because while you do get slightly better mobility, and you know, it is noticeable, of course, like going 33 or going 20 is not like a small thing, but like dropping that much DPM, dropping all that armor, having freaking 200 gun mantlet armor in a super heavy, like why? Why would you do that? Like, that is ridiculous. And while this gun is okay when it comes to, you know, the average stats, the DPM again makes me wonder, why? Why are you doing this to the tank? Like, why not just give it a bit more? And also the top speed nerf, which was really like the only reason anybody would play the VK72, the Clan War Reward tank. The only reason that tank was fun was because it could go fast down a hill, and that was a lot of fun to ram people with, but fuck it, let's take that away. Can't have people having fun in those tanks, can we? And the entire package together just makes no fucking sense to me. Like, as I said before, it's literally like one hand of the Wargaming doesn't know what the other one is doing with the mouse buff and with this thing coming along. And another thing that comes together with the mouse and Type 5 heavy buff is that everybody shoots gold, and then your DPM becomes pathetic. Like, truly, truly fucking pathetic. Because you don't have that idiotic hit point sponge as the mouse does as well, and this tank is made out of all flat surfaces, upper plate, lower plate, everything. Like, heat generally will go through all of it, and with the mouse it's slightly different, where you still need to aim for the turret cheeks and still need to do some actual work there. This tank just takes absolutely no effort to get through, even with AP, if you know what you're doing. Also, luckily for me, my enemies in this game were mostly brain dead twats that have no idea how to play this game, which is generally the, well, one of the reasons why I get the A is also the fact that this Batchet already got me here. This probably is like game over for the most part, but luckily for me, the Batchet already was too stupid to reload before relocating, so I only got shot once, and he actually seems to not have any more ammo. So, you know, lucky that the RD player was too fucking stupid to reload before he relocated. So I am very happy here, and I'm still alive. Also, another fun fact about this tank I didn't mention is that behind those hull weak spots, like, you know, when you side scrape under the turret, there's ammo rack stored there. So getting ammo racked in this tank is a common occurrence. Getting your engine destroyed with heat frontally, common occurrence. Getting your driver killed through the lower plate with heat, common occurrence. All of those things happen on regular basis, so it is extreme fun to play this tank, and I really enjoyed all my time with it, of course. Alright, to sum it up, Pz.Kpfw 7, a German super heavy with a back-mounted turret with a lot, and I do mean a lot of weak spots, with tier 8 medium tanks DPM, and pretty okay gun that really does not make up for all the shortcomings of this tank. In this game though, everything worked reasonably well for me. Obviously that E100's ammo rack, the fact that my enemies did not press the Q2 key let me actually survive this long. Did 5.4k damage damage bounced by armor generally across the map as well. We took a really aggressive position into the middle, which is what I like to do in my super heavies these days, as it just generally saves you time of driving around like a dumbass and doing nothing, which is something you cannot afford to do when you have this DPM. So yeah, we did get shit on by Artie, and we did get shit on by Artie again. Of course, they're gonna drown in the end as the subhuman pieces of fucking human trash that they are. But generally, things worked well for me here. If that was a tracking shot, that would have been slightly better, but we did get the kill instead. The only thing I'm not too happy about in this game is the lackluster spotting that I got in this game, even though I was spotting the IS-7, the SD1, the BKB, and all of that stuff for a long time, and we did have 3 RDs, but none of them were interested in shooting whatever I was spotting, so instead I got to get my assistance damage in this way, which works for me, but obviously that was really lucky. Alright, so that kind of seals the action for me in this game. The Batchet RD, of course, is gonna go and drown himself, and the 1390 is gonna get picked up by the Batchet. Alright, so here's the end plate. Ace Tanker, Steel Wall, High Caliber, Confederate, 1808 experience with premium count, 8071 damage done, 1436 assisted. We picked up 4 kills as well as 1205 base experience. So yeah, the Pz.Kpfw 7, if you still can't tell and you still need to ask the question, is it worth the grind? Well, if you want the second worst tier 8 heavy tank after the IS-4, which I think takes the top spot in that list, then sure, go for it. If you don't though, you probably should avoid this. Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoyed my review of this giant piece of turd, and I'll see you guys on the next one.